Okay, so as I said, we do have our partner, Illinois Student Assistance Commission, who is going to be doing this presentation with us. And I do want to welcome Emily, um, and thank her for being so patient with me today. My name is Jessie Flores, but I am a housing counselor at for Great Lakes Credit Union at the Crystal Lake branch, along with Violetta Flemenben. She is a counselor for the North Chicago branch. And the main purpose for or the main mission for Great Lakes Credit Union for the Housing Counseling Department is to improve the stability and quality of life of families and communities by providing education and counseling in the areas of credit and financial management, homeownership and education, homeownership education and foreclosure intervention. And we do this by providing different services, which includes financial and counseling education. So these classes here are an example of that, rental counseling. So anyone who would like to or needs to rent, we provide counseling for that. Pre-purchases, anyone who would like to become a homeowner, we provide counseling for home ownership. Pre-purchase, that means if you would like to um, receive counseling throughout the steps before becoming a homeowner. Post purchase is after you have become a homeowner. And let's say that you now need some financing to make repairs in your home. And what do you need to do to get that financing? So we help with that. And foreclosure intervention, that means you're having difficulties making the mortgage payments. So you want to prevent losing your home. So we provide that counseling as well. All of the services financial counseling services that we provide are free of charge, not only to members of Great Lakes Credit Union, but all of the members of the community. You don't have to be a client of the credit union to receive our services. Anyone can receive our services. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to be evaluating the cost of college. We're going to learn how to create a spending plan and understand financial aid. So these are some of the different costs that can come with financing education and some of the sources where you can receive some financing. So first you see on your screen on your left hand side some of the sources where you can receive some financings, which include some grants. If you are in the military, you can receive some financing from there. Obviously, student aided loans, some private scholarships, and some other loans from non-for-profits. Some non-for-profits also offer some financing as well. Employer tuition assistance. Some employers also offer some assistance to their employees that you might be able to apply for that. Another thing is personal savings. Obviously, starting to save when your child is young, or if you yourself are starting or you would like to go back to school, you can, or you are going to school, you can um, save for that as well. Help from family, child care grants, tuition installment payments, work and study, and having a second job or a third job, private loans and loan forgiveness. So a loan forgiveness is that if you are, let's say, if you are in the working in the non-for-profit world or for the government, you may apply for that benefit, and after being in that a non-for-profit world or working for the government for a period of at least 10 years, your loans may be forgiven. So that's something that I'm sure Emily will talk about. And then on your right-hand side, you see some of the expenses that may have to pay when you are in college. And that's something that also she may be covering as well. So it's not only tuition, but also um, your dorm and your meals, or the apartment where the student will be living, loan fees, books and supplies. If the student is in any clubs, any rent and utilities, their cell phone, if they need a car, or if they need to pay for a bus, or use a train for transportation, any laundry expenses, if they need if you need childcare, a computer, or also if the student travels abroad, if you would like to study in a different country, that's another expense that you have to take into consideration, how much it will cost you to study in a different country. um, work wardrobe. So once the student has graduated, now you might need to think about what um, clothes you need to wear specifically to your career, right? And any emergencies as well. So this talks about developing a spending plan. So spending plan is a live document, and what that means is it changes with time. So first you have to identify your goals and values. So what is your specific goal, and is this goal, how important is this goal for you? Then you have to track your income and expenses, and we'll talk about that in a second. Then you assess your current situation. And so that's where it comes where it's important to assess. That's why I was saying that it's a live document. So obviously things happen in life, and emergencies happen, and you might have to make adjustments. So what is important to you today, it might change tomorrow, and you might have to make adjustments to be able to accomplish your goals, right? So it is an ever-changing document, but it's important to always keep in mind what your goal is, and to be able to achieve it. So this is how you keep track of your income and expenses. So please, I'm sorry, first it's important to know your cash flow. So first you determine your net income, and also determine your expenses. So there's 4 types of expenses. It's regular fixed expense. So an example of that is, for example, your rent or your mortgage payment or your car payment. Regular variable expense, it can be your phone bill or your or utility bills. That varies, but every month you pay it. Irregular expected is, for example, it can be that mm, your maintenance in your car. So it can be different every time you take your car for maintenance, but it is expected because your car needs maintenance. Irregular, unexpected is emergencies. So let's say you have a broken bone, or your car breaks down. So that is an irregular because it doesn't, hopefully doesn't break down often, but it is unexpected, obviously. It can be an emergency, and it just happened. Or you had a car accident. It wasn't expected, and it's irregular. Another thing to do is to collect your bills and receipts and gather information and on all of your expenses and review your statements. So make sure that you know where your money is going. So you review your bank statements and then you estimate your expenses that are unable to track. So you can do that by keeping your receipts. You look at the big picture and then analyze your bottom line and consider habits and attitudes. So, what that means is just look at how you are spending your money and how you react towards um, your money spending. How do you develop a plan? So, maximize your income. Um, And the way that you can do that is by understanding your income and expenses. Make sure that you utilize the best way that you can your income, and you can decrease your expenses by you can look at what is your goal, overall goal, and then you can ask yourself what can I decrease or eliminate for a short period of time to reach my goal, and that way you can maximize your income. Understand your tax benefits that you can do with your with the person that helps you do your income taxes. Consider your needs, wants, and obligations. Reduce your debt so that you can do by looking at whether you can do the plan, what is called the avalanche. So, which is you look at what is your smallest, oh, sorry about that, your smallest debt, and you pay that. Um, and then you look at the next smallest debt and you use the previous payment and add it to the next smallest debt, and so on and so forth. You build your savings, making a realistic spending plan, and review and stay on track. So we were talking about um, your your plan being a live document. And then here, understanding cost of college, we're gonna move on to Emily.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Coveney, and I'm from the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. And to get into it, we're going to be talking about the understanding the cost of college. Next slide. Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so getting into it, this is a website called College Scorecard. It's on the U.S. Department of Education. This is going to give you a breakdown of how much each college costs. You can search for a specific university, and it'll give you a breakdown of their graduation rate and the average annual cost, and then how much money students are making after they're earning, after how much money they're making after they're graduating. It's also important to note you want to look at the graduation rate of the school, because if it's a really low graduation rate, that means that students are either not graduating and not finishing for some reason, or they're transferring out of that specific university. So just making sure you're keeping an eye on that. Also, I want to talk about how even if you see a really high average annual cost, that should not deter you from applying to that school and sending them your FAFSA, because you never know how much financial aid you're going to receive from that school. Sometimes a private university, while it may have that really high average annual cost, it might end up being cheaper for you to attend because they might be giving you more financial aid. Next slide.
Oops.
So what exactly is financial aid? Financial aid is money given, borrowed, or earned that is going to be attained from various sources to help pay for college. It is intended to make college more affordable, and it's also intended to make up the difference between what your family can afford to pay and how much college actually costs. So if you think you can't afford school, think again, there is lots of aid. The first step in applying for financial aid is filling out your FAFSA. It can seem really scary, and it can seem like there's a lot of options out there for you. First step is filling out the FAFSA as soon as it opens. Next slide. So there are different types of financial aid, and there are two big types, and the first one is gift aid. And underneath gift aid, there are different grants and scholarships. So gift aid is a gift. You typically don't have to pay this money back. And there are different grants. So in Illinois, we have something called the MAP grant. I'll get into that in a moment. And then there are scholarships. So scholarships you typically don't have to pay back. And then there's self-help aid. So when you apply for a FAFSA, you're also applying for federal student loans. That would be self-help aid. That money is borrowed, and after you graduate or drop out, you do have to pay that money back. Then there's work study. Essentially, this is an on-campus job. When you are filling out the FAFSA, there will be a question that says, would you like to be considered for federal work study? I always encourage students to click yes. When you click yes, you are not committed to getting a job on campus. It's just opening up, you just have more options, really. But once you get to that school and you know you've committed to a school, you then can start looking at a job and then apply, interview, or whatever steps they have you, and try and get that job. That money then can go straight into your pocket, or it can go straight towards your tuition. That is work study. Next slide. So there are different sources of financial aid. The biggest source is the federal government. That's the U.S. Department of Education. When you fill out your FAFSA, you're applying for the federal government source of financial aid. Also, in Illinois, when you fill out the FAFSA, you're applying for the state government financial aid. In Illinois, we have something called the MAP grant, and that is a need-based grant, and you apply for it by filling out the FAFSA. However, you do have to stay in Illinois. So you have to be an Illinois student that's going to stay in Illinois. Doesn't have to be a private or public school. It has to be a MAP approved institution. Most of them are in Illinois, but you do have to stay in Illinois if you want the MAP grant. Then once you apply to school and send them your FAFSA, a college also could offer you institutional aid. That could be merit-based, based on your grades. That could be if you're in a sport, whatever it is. That's another source of financial aid. Then there's outside or private sources. So outside would be you are going online and looking up scholarships.com. That would be an outside source of financial aid. Also, if you're going to Sallie Mae for private loans, that's an outside source or private source of financial aid. Next slide. So here are the two big grants. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but in Illinois, we have the MAP grant. So it is actually, you can actually get more than the Pell Grant. I think it's for the first time this year, you can get more. So it's up to $8,400. You might not get the full thing, but you can. And again, the way you apply for this, you fill out the FAFSA. Same with the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant is the federal grant. So even if you don't go to school in Illinois and you go to school in Indiana or Wisconsin, and you're eligible for the Pell Grant, you can still use that Pell Grant. But if you get the MAP grant and the Pell Grant, and then you go out of state, you will only get the Pell Grant. But you can use both of these, and if you get the max amount, it is up to $15,795. Next slide. There are different loan options. So before you take out loans, you want to make sure you're considering the following. So you want to know the source of the loan. If you filled out the FAFSA and didn't apply for any outside loans, and then you send your FAFSA to the school you want to go to, they will then give you a breakdown of the loans you can take out. So just make sure you know where that loan is coming from. If you filled out the FAFSA, it's coming from the federal government. Make sure you know the interest rate. Is it a variable or is it a fixed interest rate? So is it going to fluctuate or is it going to stay the same? Then make sure you know if it's subsidized or unsubsidized. And then make sure you know the repayment options and the grace period. The grace period refers to the time where you don't have to start repaying the loans. Typically, if you drop out or you graduate, you have a 6-month grace period. So after you graduate, there is a 6-month time period when you don't have to start repaying your loans. That is referred to as the grace period. Next slide. So how are you applying for financial aid? So to be considered for student aid, a student must complete all of the forms required by a school. In Illinois, there is a FAFSA mandate. So if you go to high school in Illinois, you have to fill out the FAFSA anyway. There is an option to opt out, but I highly recommend you just do it. So applying for financial aid is filling out the FAFSA. The alternative application for Illinois financial aid. This is not, you do not complete both the FAFSA and the alternative app. The alternative app is only for Illinois undocumented students. Undocumented students cannot get federal aid, but in Illinois, we've made it so they can get state aid, like the MAP grant. So you're not filling out both. If you're eligible for the FAFSA, you're filling out the FAFSA. Other forms refers to the CSS profile. If you go on, say you want to go to Northwestern and you're on their admissions page, they will give you a breakdown of every form you need to be filling out. You can also call Northwestern or whatever school you want to go to and see what forms you're supposed to be filling out. Some schools need the CSS profile, just making sure you keep it up to date on that. Next slide.
Emily, you can see the slides, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay, good.
So when are you filling out this application? So as soon as possible after the filing period begins. It also says check with colleges for specific guidelines. So if the FAFSA opens and you don't want to fill it out right away, you want to wait, but the school you're applying to needs it by a certain date, just make sure you're aware of that. Who's filling it out? So high school seniors are filling this out, and then college students. Every year you're in school, you're going to be renewing your FAFSA. You're going to be logging back on to federal student aid and renewing your FAFSA. So how are you filling out? You're going to FAFSA.gov. And then the alternative app, again, not everyone is doing the alternative app. If you're an eligible undocumented student, you're doing the alternative app, but that is on ISAC's website. Why are you filling this form out? You're determining eligibility for federal and state aid programs. And then some institutions use it to award institutional aid. Even if you think you make too much money and you won't get the MAP or Pell Grant, I still say you should fill it out, not only because your school requires it, but because colleges might want it anyway, and they can award you their own institutional aid. Next slide. So parent information. So most students report parent information until the age of 24. This is pretty much true unless the student's going to grad school. But for the most part, if you are, even if you're 18, you're still putting your parents' information on there. So for financial aid purposes, there are only 3 types of parents. These are biological parents, adopted parents, and then step parents only if they're married to that biological parent. If you are a legal guardian, you are not a parent for the FAFSA. If you're someone who is not a parent but just puts the student on their taxes, you are still not a parent in terms of the FAFSA. It is only those 3 options, and they have to be reported on that student's FAFSA. No one else is putting their information on the FAFSA. Legal guardians are not considered parents for financial aid purposes. If parents are divorced, you are reporting the information about the parent. The student lived. It's actually the parent who provided the most financial support in the past 12 months. It is not, I forgot to change that, but it is not about where the student was living. For the FAFSA that opens this December, it is the parent who provided the most financial support, and you can work that out between the parents. If it's 50-50, you can work that out. Next slide. So information needed. So for the FAFSA, you're needing social security numbers, alien registration numbers if a student is not a U.S. citizen. Parents who don't have socials are using all zeros, and then federal student aid or FSA ID. At this very moment, you can go on federal student aid or FAFSA.gov and create an account. When you're creating an account, you're creating an FSA ID. A student will need an FSA ID, and a parent will need an FSA ID. The parent just needs an FSA ID to electronically sign their student's FAFSA. The student does need one. Basically, you're putting in your social security number, address, and you're making a username and password. That is your FSA ID. You need that when you're filling out the FAFSA. Also, for the FAFSA and the alternative app, before you sit down to fill out your FAFSA, I highly recommend having these with you or put them in a folder and have them with you. So for the FAFSA that opens this December, you need your 2022 federal tax returns, W-2, other records of income, banking statements, records of investments, records of untaxed income, and then list of colleges the student would like to attend. That is because when you fill out the FAFSA, there's a drop-down menu, and you can type in each college you would like to send your FAFSA to. If you don't end up going to that school, or you haven't even applied to that school and you still just want to send your FAFSA to them, there is no harm in sending your FAFSA to a school and never actually applying to that school. They just won't touch your FAFSA. Next slide. So after you have filled out the FAFSA, the student has made their FSA ID, the parent has used their FSA ID to sign the student's FAFSA, something called the Student Aid Index is going to be generated. If you've heard of the EFC or the Expected Family Contribution, this is the updated version of that. They changed the name because this is more reflective of what it actually means. So the Student Aid Index is a number generated to determine your eligibility for different aid programs. It can be a negative number as well, but it's what schools are going to look at too to determine how much financial aid you're eligible for. Next slide. Verification. So after you have submitted your FAFSA and sent it off to schools, schools will then reach out to you. And if there's something that they want more information about or need to verify, it's a process called verification. Essentially, it could be a copy of your tax returns. They could say, can you send us a list of all the students in your household and their ages? They could ask for that. Don't be scared. This is very common. It happens to a lot of different students. Sometimes it's random. We don't really know. But just making sure that if a school is saying, can you provide us your W-2? You're just sending them your W-2 and you're submitting that document on time. Next slide. So how much does college cost? So colleges create a budget known as the cost of attendance. So when you're Googling a school or using the College Board website to see that really big number, that's called the cost of attendance, the yearly cost of attendance. So they break it down into direct or indirect expenses. So direct expenses would mean they go directly to the school. Indirect would mean it doesn't necessarily go directly to the school, and it can kind of fluctuate depending on your situation. So tuition and fees, that's pretty much going to stay the same. Tuition fees as direct expense, you're paying that directly to the school. Room and board. If you're living in a dorm at school and you're on campus, that is a direct expense. That money that you're paying for the dorm is going directly to the school. However, if you are off campus and you're in your own apartment, that is an indirect expense. It's still money that costs for you to go to school because you're living in that apartment, but it's indirect because it's not going directly to the school. Then also under indirect is transportation, books, supplies, and miscellaneous living expenses, toiletries, things like that. That's all under miscellaneous. All of that would equal the cost of attendance or the COA. Next slide. So how much financially can you really receive? So it's going to depend on your financial need. And colleges are going to consider all available aid to try to meet your financial need, but it's not guaranteed. So they're looking at the cost of attendance of the school or the cost of the college. They're subtracting your student aid index. And then they're also subtracting other financial assistance. So say that one refers to if you already have a scholarship from a school or an outside scholarship. That's your other financial assistance. That's going to total your financial needs. So how much money you still need to go to school. That's what's left. Next slide. Here are two examples. This is just going to show you that obviously the cost of college is going to depend on the school. So if college A and college B, those are very different, but your student aid index is going to remain the same. And then you could have other financial assistance that's also going to fluctuate depending on the school, whatever your situation is. It's going to give you a very different financial need. But basically, this is to show you that your student aid index is going to remain the same no matter where you're applying. Next slide.
Oops. Oh, there is. Somehow, sorry about that, Emily. It was this
Okay.
one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So just making sure you're going to get a financial aid award letter. This will be after you have applied to the school, then filled out your FAFSA as soon as it opens. And when you're filling out your FAFSA, you're sending it to that school. They're receiving your FAFSA. They're going to then give you a financial aid award letter. This will be how you determine which school you're going to go to, because obviously each financial aid award letter is going to be different. So when you get your financial aid award letter from that school, make sure you look at what was the cost of attendance of the school. What was your student aid index? We're not using expected family contribution anymore, but student aid index. What was the student's financial aid eligibility? What types of financial aid were included? So was it the gift aid? Was there a lot of scholarships they were giving you? Or was it a lot more self-help aid? Make sure you're aware of that. Was your financial need actually met? Or do you have a really big out-of-pocket cost? So the out-of-pocket cost is your bottom line. Here's what you're going to be paying to go to school. Next slide. So here's an overview of the overall financial aid process. Hopefully this will break it down. It can be overwhelming in your head, but this is giving you a step-by-step instruction. So you're completing the FAFSA as soon as it opens. You're reviewing application data. You're completing verification if you're selected. So that is if the school says, hey, we need more information about this. You're doing that. Then you're receiving and reviewing your financial aid offers. This comes after you have applied and been accepted to that school. Then you're responding to schools. Make sure to if you know you don't want to attend that school, tell them no, because a student could be waitlisted and you just want to make sure you get out of the way. If you don't want to go to that school, you tell them no. So make sure you respond to colleges. You complete all pending processes if they need more information from you, whatnot. And you're renewing the FAFSA or alternative application every year you're in school. Next slide. Okay, so this is something called the ISAC student portal. This is going to be on ISAC's website. This has scholarship websites you can look up. This will be where you can apply for more ISAC grants if you'd like. And this also can give you tips on filling out the FAFSA, things like that. So this is a good website if you want to make an account, just be email, password, but it's isac.org/student portal. Next slide. Here are some trusted websites. Make sure when you fill out the FAFSA, it's fafsa.gov or studentaid.gov. It's like the same website. But make sure it says .gov. That's key. If you're on a website that is .com, you're on the wrong website. And if you're on a website where they're trying to get you to pay to fill out the FAFSA, or you have to put in any credit card information, you're on the wrong website. isac.org/alternative app, that is where eligible undocumented students are filling out a financial aid application. And then student portal, isac.org, we just talked about. Next slide. Here is my information. If you would like to either call me, text that number, or email me if you have any questions that either now or they come up later when you're filling out the FAFSA, I'd be happy to help you.
Thank you very much, Emily. That was very, very helpful. And thank you very much for sharing your knowledge on this.
Yes, thank you so much, Emily. That was very, very important information. Again, just to repeat, when does the FAFSA open again, or for people to apply?
The date hasn't been finalized.
Okay.
It will be before December 31st. Most people are assuming it then will just be on the 31st of December because they haven't given us a finalized date yet. But you'd be going to studentaid.gov to keep updated on that.
Okay, perfect. That was my next question. So anyone who's interested, who is applying for FAFSA, I know I'm one of the families, I have a senior at home. We should be checking that studentaid.gov portal then, just to make sure we're there when it opens. And then if anyone in Illinois in particular, I know sometimes we get people from other states joining our webinars. Again, you can go to isac.org for information pertaining to Illinois students. And then studentaid.gov for the FAFSA. Again, that's going to open sometime in December. So just keep checking that portal to make sure that you do log on, you fill it out, especially if you do have a high school senior. So again, if you have any questions, ISAC also has a lot of resources. We've shown Emily's contact information. And Emily, are you able, I know with a lot of younger people, they like to text now and everything. Are you able to receive text at your contact information, or is it just phone and email?
Yeah, they can text that number.
Okay, perfect. Again, so it's pretty easy. You can text. The services that ISAC provides are free. So again, Emily had mentioned if anyone's charging you for anything, just be very cautious. There are unfortunately a lot of scams out there, especially preying on families that are trying to get financial aid for their students. So just be very cautious. But Isaac offers free resources. Again, the FAFSA is also free on studentaid.gov. You will not be charged for it. If you have any other questions, you can always reach Emily at Isaac. We put her contact information. You can reach us. We're at glcu.org. Under the search bar, you can put housing counseling services and our information will come up. Otherwise, our email is housing@glcu.org. And again, the website, glcu.org. And then we do have a phone number, and I'll let Jesse take over with the phone number.
Which is, as you can see there, 224-252-2620.
And then as far as housing counseling, all our services are free as well. If you are 18 years or older, you're a college student, you maybe never learned how to budget, feel free to reach out to us for an intake for an appointment on financial counseling. It's completely free. We know a lot of the young people like doing things virtually, so we do our appointments virtually. And we'll give you really great tips on budgeting, how to stay on track, especially if you are receiving scholarship money. Maybe you're receiving also help from your parents, you have a certain amount every month that you can't go over. Having that budget, that spending plan is really crucial. And there's no better time to start learning healthy financial habits than, your first year in college. It really just sets a good precedent. So when you're an adult, you won't fall into that trap of credit card debt, other debt. So again, feel free to give us a call or email us. We'll be happy to meet with you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thank you again, Emily. We really appreciate um, your assistance today. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you
And
again, Emily. This information you gave us was really invaluable. I know it's going to help a lot of families. College can be very, very scary, in terms of funding. What do I do? What do I fill out? So the information you gave is worth its weight in gold for anyone listening in. This is really crucial information. So again, contact us if you missed anything or you have any other questions. We can always refer you to Emily's as well if it's something more Isaac related. So again, Emily, that information was amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending your Saturday with us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Okay. Well, thank you, Emily, for being so patient with me. Oh God, this was nerve-wracking.
It's good.
Uh,
We did it. We did it.
Oh
we did it.
my gosh. I
No,
almost had a heart attack here.
no,
And
it's
then
okay.
I couldn't see anything. I lost you. All I could see was the PowerPoint. I wasn't even sure you were there anymore.
Nothing. I was gonna say nothing like tech problems, on a webinar day. And then with me, I actually, speaking of college, I came to drop my son back off, which should be a 45-minute drive, and with an accident, it's now 2+ hours. So I pulled over and I'm like, I can relate to the other college parents. But thank you, Emily. Normally our webinars are a lot smoother, a lot, tech issue free, and there must be a full moon tonight. So we really
Yeah.
appreciate your patience.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. It was good. We worked it out. We figured it out. We got it done. We're good.
yeah. Thank you for being so patient with us. And we promise the next time, hopefully, will not be like this.
That's okay. That's okay. All right.
I am.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Emily. You have a good day.
Okay.